So yeah, today we're chatting about the eczema-histamine connection, and not everybody has an issue with this, and not the solution isn't taking antihistamines and going on a low histamine diet. So just reiterating that from the very beginning. But if you have allergies and if you get like hay fever symptoms, like runny nose, congested, watery eyes, sneezing, if you're reactive to certain foods, if you have cyclical eczema and PMS symptoms as well, then definitely tune in because it could be an issue with histamine. And I'm just going to chat about why just addressing histamine isn't the solution, and also giving you a bit of insight and looking into the bigger picture. And a lot of times when you go down the rabbit hole of investing histamine, it feels like it's the actual enemy, but we need histamine in our body. Well, I mean, you're going to have histamine in your body no matter what. So it's just about how you address it. So the so commonly people with an issue with histamine will have a lot of environmental triggers. So change of season, allergies to pollen, grass, dust mites, mold, and then sometimes when they eat sauerkraut and when they eat bone broth, which are two skin-loving foods, recommend that to everybody if they can tolerate it. But if you're reactive to those foods, then we need to hold tight. There's also a lot of other foods that are higher in histamines, but those are just some baseline ones that I see in clinic. And because it's people that are trying to eat healthy and do good to their skin but they're still getting flare-ups and they're getting triggered and getting some of those more hay fever like symptoms, which I call that pseudo allergies because it's not allergies. There's another training on that one in the guide section, but yeah, so foods as well. And then also a big red flag is if you're taking antihistamines for your reiterate that if just avoiding these foods, high histamine foods, if it is an issue for you, or taking antihistamines is not the solution, right? This is a Band-Aid solution. And so I see in clinic so many times clients that have worked with other practitioners or just done research themselves and put themselves on a low histamine diet. For some, hasn't worked, but they're still doing it. If it's not working, then that's a good indication that histamine isn't a problem in terms of food, or they're just avoiding the foods and they're not doing any work healing. So you're actually not supporting your body to be able to break it down. And again, it's a Band-Aid solution because if you're just avoiding the trigger or not getting to the root cause and fixing the imbalance in your body so you can tolerate it. Because everything that we do in terms of eczema and the healing protocols are, if food is an issue, because food is not an issue for everybody, but if it is, we want to do the work healing so you can reintroduce the foods. And essentially, the aim is to create diversity in your diet. So the clinical examples. So when we get on our calls every week, it's quite interesting because not everybody, well, nobody is on the same healing journey. Everybody is working on different things. So there are some people that don't have any issues with so we're going to put that bucket of people aside. There are some others that have histamine, that are sensitive to histamine, but in different ways. So with histamine, there's, let's say, my first client, she has no issue with high histamine foods, but she has a lot of environmental allergies. So in her blood work, we saw high eosinophils, we saw high basophils, and monocytes. So then I'm like, okay, we have a histamine overload here. And so for her, it's more systemic. So where the other one we're going to be talking about more gut related. So this one is, she's a high histamine response. So when you have these external allergies, what happens is your immune system, so you have an allergy and your body will signal that whatever you're allergic to, that's an invader and it's toxic. And then your immune system will send out the soldiers and try and fight it. And then that whenever you have that immune response, depending on your immune system will always detect what the soldier is, and it'll send out a specific white blood cell. And so that's why the different, when you get your blood test done, the different white blood cells tell a different story. So then it will send out a white blood cell, the soldier, to go kill it. And then what happens is it produces, it can produce mast cells and different mediators that will kill the toxin. Part of that response will be histamine. In a perfect world, your body will break down the histamine, no issue. And so that's why some people are sensitive to it and some people aren't, because everybody's producing histamine to some extent, or getting it in their diet. It's just about whether you can break it down, or if there's an overload in it. There's an overload. So that's one side of the picture, and that's systemic and that's allergic. The other client is more gut related. So she is triggered by high histamine foods. And so bone broth, big trigger, fermented foods, and tomatoes, and those classic high histamine foods. And so for her, and like the two people, they both have the similar presentations, rashes on their skin, and similar problems, but different treatment protocols. So again, reiterating why understanding and listening to your body and figuring out the problem that you're having, and then the solution that's specific to you, because it can present similar but be completely different healing protocols. So for her, the problem is more gut related, because in your gut, so all healthy foods can have histamine, or foods that are packaged, sitting out for longer, because they have a higher microbial load. And so what can happen is your gut isn't producing efficiently enough DIO, the enzyme to break down histamine. So it can also be because you have gut infections, and so these infections are producing more histamine, or you're just having an overactive immune response, which producing more histamine, or nutrient deficiencies, which I see a lot, and you're not producing enough of the you're not having enough nutrients to produce the enzymes to break down histamine. And then on top of that, there's also genetic aspects as well. So different factors that play here. And so a lot of times I'll see people and they'll reduce histamines in their diet, but we're not doing anything to heal, right? Band-Aid solution. If you're just avoiding the trigger, what's going to happen is you're just going to live in a bubble, or you're going to have to deal with a flare-up. So we really want to be understanding why, right? So is this more systemic, or is it more of a histamine load? And again, I always like giving the analogy of drops in the bucket. We spoke about it the other week when we were talking about stress and the emotional drops in the bucket, and then just in terms of all of your triggers, drops in the bucket. And right now, your drops in the bucket, we can chat about it with histamine. So it can be, you might have, so example number one, where it's more IgE, environmental allergies, you might have that picture, and that might be it. And that might be histamine drops in the bucket. Or that might have been drops in the bucket overload, and now you're having issues with high histamine foods, and you haven't before. Or you might just only have reactions to high histamine foods. Or you might have both. So again, this is drops in the bucket, and that the drops in the bucket with histamine might be taking up a lot of your drops in the bucket. And I talk about drops in the bucket so in a couple of the other videos, so I won't go into too much detail about that, but it's essentially your flare-up bucket. All of your triggers are drops in the bucket. When it's at the very top, that's when you get a flare-up and it's overflowing. So what we want to be doing with, like, when we're talking about that analogy, is it's not just about avoiding them, right? It's about being able to drain the bucket efficiently by supporting the elimination organs and being able to break it down and get rid of it efficiently. So let me know in the comments below which symptoms you've been experiencing, if it is more food related, if it's environmental allergies, if it's getting more like stuffy nose after eating certain foods, sneezing, that sort of thing, or sometimes with the change in season, if you are getting environmental allergies to pollen or grasses or different types of wood or birch, and then you can have a cross-reactivity to foods that have a similar structure to those environmental allergies as well. And that's usually a tickling in the throat. So let me know in the comments below if you guys are getting any of those. And then, or if, getting triggered by bone broth, sauerkraut, those are two big ones. And I guess the summary of all of this is histamine can be a problem, and everybody's producing it. And a lot of times people will say histamine's the enemy. And so it's not just about taking antihistamines because it's a Band-Aid solution. And we saw a couple weeks ago in clinic, long-term use of antihistamines can actually make you more susceptible to gut infections like H. pylori, reduces the gastric acid. If you have reduced gastric acid, you aren't breaking down enough proteins, or you're not breaking down protein efficiently, so you can't absorb proteins and amino acids, one of the main nutrient deficiencies I see with eczema, which means you can't support liver detoxification, you don't have the building blocks to heal and repair your skin. And then what happens as well, you're more susceptible to infections because that stomach acid is your first line of defense when food comes through your stomach. And then also that can create an imbalance, a dysbiosis of your good and bad bacteria. And that's essentially your immune system as well. So there's a lot of flow-on effects from taking antihistamines, and there's not enough education about the side effects of them. And side note, look, if you are taking antihistamines and it's helping you in this moment, by all means, we need to get you out of pain. But short-term approach, right? And that's what medications are for the most part if you don't have anything that's like super chronic. Long-term approach is always we want to understand why, look at what body systems it's like there's an imbalance with, and then support those body systems. And so again, when we're looking at the two different clinical examples that I explained, the importance is like, why do you have an issue with histamine, right? Figure out why. If it's more systemic, if it's more food, if it's both, then we can figure out a solution and then put together a protocol to help support, whether if it's enzyme, whether it's allergic reaction, immune, gut, whatever it is. So if you have been struggling with histamine intolerance or high histamine foods, allergic reactions, and you've been struggling with it for more than 6 months, you've trialed out a few different things, if you do need some extra support, I'm always happy to have a chat with you guys and hop on a quick call just to understand, get some clarity on what's been going on with you. Or if you just want to send me a DM or have a quick chat with one of the community specialists, more than happy to help support you guys. So drop a little emoji or let's chat below and somebody can reach out to you to help you get you started on your healing protocol or healing journey, because yeah, there's no point in struggling. And a lot of times people just think that they have these sensitivities and allergic reactions. They've gone to the doctors and that there's no way out, but there is hope. And I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with all my clients. So I'll stop babbling. And if you do have any questions, drop them below. And yeah, please let me know if this was helpful, because I'm happy to hop on and do more videos like this on different topics. So anyways, I'll chat to you soon. Bye.